Here are 10 animal names and what they mean. Raccoon comes from a Native American word which means the one who scratches with his hands. Armadillo has its origins in Spanish and it means little armored one. Porcupine has its roots in the Old French word porc espin and it means spiny pig. Makho is a Persian word which literally means snake eater. Okay. Rhinoceros comes from the Greek and its name literally means nose horn. Leopard has a couple of origins. It comes from the Old French word leopard, which is also derived from the Latin and Greek word lepidus, which literally means lion panther. Cheetah comes from the Hindi word chitraka, which means spotted, speckled, or variegated. Stop! I know what you're thinking. Octopus does not mean 8-legged or 8 legs. It's a Greek word, which actually means 8 foot. Koala comes from the Darug word gula, which means no water, which makes perfect sense as these animals literally do not drink. And the animal that blew up my TikTok, hippopotamus, comes from a Greek word which means river horse, which sounds much nicer than African murder cow. 10 more animal names and what they mean. Orangutan comes from a Malay word which means man of the forest. Lemur comes from a Latin word which means ghost or spirit. Aardvark is an Afrikaans word which means earth pig. Jaguar has its origins in the indigenous South American word Jaguara, which means the one who kills with one leap. Lynx has its origins in Middle English, Latin, and Greek, and it means light or brightness, which refers to how their eyes shine in the dark. Ferret is derived from the Latin word furitus, which means little thief. Ferret owners, you know. Skunk has its roots in a Native American word which has one part meaning fox and the other part meaning to squirt. Also, the Latin scientific name of the striped skunk literally means poisonous vapors. Capybara has its roots in Spanish, Portuguese, and Old Tupi and literally means grass eater or master of the grasses. Coyote, depending on who's talking, has Mexican Spanish origins from the Aztec word coyotl, and it literally means trickster. The name of this feathered Looney Tune is pretty self-explanatory. However, its scientific Latin name, Geococcix californianus, literally means California earth cuckoo. You can't get much more literal than that. 10 more animal names and what they mean. This is batch 3, people! Impala is a Zulu word which means gazelle and also originates from the Swana word pala, which means red antelope. Vulture has its roots in French, Old French, and Latin, specifically the Latin word velere, which means to pluck or tear. Oh, this is long. So, ostrich has its roots in the Vulgar Latin word ostruthio and the ancient Greek word struthion, which is shortened from struthio camelus, which basically means big sparrow. Axolotl is a Nahuatl or Aztec word which means servant of water or water monster, but it also refers to the Aztec god Xolotl who could shapeshift into a salamander to fool his enemies. Why has no one done a movie about this? Mantis comes from Latin and ancient Greek and it means prophet, seer, or one who divines. These bugs can see in 3D, so yeah, that tracks. Caracal comes from the Turkish word karakulak, which means black ears. No surprises there. Jerboa has its roots in the Arabic word jarbu or yarbu, which means flesh of the loins, which possibly refers to the strong back muscles of their bouncy back legs. Coati has its roots in Old Tupi and Portuguese, and it means belt nose. Also, the scientific Latin name Nasua nasua literally means nose. Serval comes from the Portuguese word serval, which actually means lynx, a completely different cat. It's also thought to come from the medieval Latin words lupus servalis, which means wolf-like deer. Zebra has Portuguese and Italian origins, but most likely comes from the vulgar Latin phrase equiferus, which means fierce horse, which makes perfect sense as they are panicky psychos that have never successfully been domesticated. Here's 10 animal names and what they mean. Batch number 4. Tamandua is a Tupi-Guarani word which means ant hunter or ant eater. Badger is said to come from the French word bicheux, which means digger. Quetzal means large, brilliant tail feather in Nahuatl, very on brand for this burb. Polecat is a combination of two French words, poulet and chat, which means chicken cat, in reference to their habit for raiding hen houses and murdering chickens. I love the sound of this name. Chusinga is a Hindustani word which means 4 horns, and this is the only species of antelope that has them. This cat has too many names. So puma is the Inca name for this animal. Cougar has roots in Portuguese and the Tupi word susorana, which means false deer. And early Spanish explorers called it león and gato monte, which means lion or cat of the mountain, which is where we get the word mountain lion from, even though they're not actually lions. So the story goes that penguin comes from two Welsh words, pen, which means white, and gwyn, which means head. But this was probably said by Welsh soldiers in reference to a similar looking flightless bird called the great auk. Civet has Italian, Arabic, and Old French origins, and its name is also used as a verb, which means to scent with perfume. Kingayu comes from the French word quincaju, which is based on the Algonquian name for wolverine, a completely unrelated animal, and their scientific Latin name, Potos flavus, roughly means gold drinker. Panda comes from the Nepalese word Nigalia ponia, which means bamboo eater, and it's the same when referring to either of these two distantly related animals, whether it's the vegan emo bear or the pumpkin spice fox. 10 animal names and what they mean. Batch numero 5. Yak comes from the Tibetan word giyag and refers to the male in this species of wild cow. Nutria comes from the Spanish word nutria, which actually means otter, and this giant rodent certainly swims like one. Nilgai is a fusion of two Hindi words, nil, which means blue, and gai, which means cow. So the largest antelope in Asia is a big blue cow. Zebu comes from a French word which ultimately has Tibetan origins. Possible meanings include cow and yak hybrid or camel's hump. Pelican comes from ancient Greek and has its roots in the word pelikis, which means axe, and in classical times this word was applied to both the pelican and the woodpecker, the latter of which makes more sense. Viper comes from the Latin word vipera, which means snake or serpent. It's also an offshoot of the word vivipara, which means to bring forth alive, as many viper species do with their babies. Chipmunk comes from the Algonquian word jigmonk and has a number of meanings, including red squirrel, head first, or one who descends trees headlong. Caribou is a Canadian French word which has its roots in an Algonquian word calibou, which means pawer, scratcher, or snow shoveler. Python has roots in Latin and ancient Greek mythology, referring to the monster of the same name which was slain by Apollo. It could also come from the word pythene, which means to rot or decay. The origin of the word shark is as murky as the waters they swim in. The most likely explanation is that it comes from the Dutch word schurk, which means scoundrel or villain. This was later applied to the fish for its predatory behavior, and sharks have been villains ever since.